Hello, parents and teachers who may be watching. Welcome to Creating Math Ahas for Parents. I'm Dr. Sandy Atkins, Sandy, and in this video, we're going to be looking at one digit by fraction multiplication. Now we'll look at single digit by mixed number multiplication and single digit by fractions less than 1. Now, there are other videos available in the multiplication playlist related to multiplying fractions less than 1 using an area model, multiplying whole numbers using area models and equal grouping models. And as you watch those videos, you'll see that we're using algebraic approaches to multiplication. These are all visual models for the distributive property. So if you'd like to see some of those videos, there should be a link in the description below to that playlist, and you can see what is available for you. And while I'm on it, if you would, please subscribe to the channel so you know when other videos are coming available. Hit that notifications bell, you know when they've been uploaded. Also, if you give it a thumbs up, if you find it helpful, that would be great. Share it with friends. That would be such a great help to the channel. So let's get looking at this type of multiplication. Now you can see I have a fraction kit. This is just construction paper pieces. Many of your children may have made this kit in school. We typically start making it around grade 3. We use the idea in grade 4 and grade 5, so you may find that your children are doing it again because this imagery will help us a great deal as they multiply and divide fractions later. Now, we're going to be drawing some pictures. I'm going to be drawing pictures, and if you would, pause the video and try some of these along with me. One picture we want to draw is a picture for mixed numbers. So let's say I have 2 1/3. I had this as my whole, and I had these as 1/3 pieces. And the picture you will see me draw is I tend to draw the wholes put together like this. And then I kind of cut this into the thirds, and here's my 1/3 piece. So that's going to be a picture of 2 1/3. The trick is with some of these is what would a picture of just the 1/3 look like while it's on its own? A lot of times we use shading to show a fraction in relation to the whole. If you just draw a picture of this piece, how do I know what size it is if I don't know what the whole was? So the whole is important. What I do is I draw a dashed line for the whole when I'm drawing fractions less than 1. Then I cut it into 3 equal pieces as carefully as I can, and I outline one of them to show the 1/3. Now I outlined the first piece, but I could have outlined this middle one or the end. But do you see how I know this is 1/3 because I also see it in relation to the whole? So let's use this idea and these types of drawings and then our equal grouping model. And I hope you'll see what that is, or go watch one of the other videos also on how we use equal grouping for distributive property with whole numbers. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to do 5. And instead of 1/3, let's do 2 2/3. Now I would read this as 5 groups of. Do you see how just that language alone, calling it groups of versus times, brings some imagery to mind? Now, there's nothing wrong with naming this times. I can say 5 times 2 2/3. No problem, because times I'm reading the symbols, but I'm going to try to use the language to help me decode the symbols, so I do have that imagery. Now, I need 5 groups, so I'm just going to draw some circles to separate out our groups. Doesn't matter the organization of the circles, and in each group, see, I know I have 5 groups of 2 2/3. So I'm going to draw these 5 groups of 2 2/3. And if you want to pause the video, you draw the 5 groups of 2 2/3, and then we can compare when you come back with me. But once you do this, after you're doing this for a while, do you notice how you keep thinking, oh, I need 2 wholes and I need 2 1/3 pieces in here. 2 holes and 2 1/3 pieces. Right? How am I doing this? See, what have I done? I am thinking the more I draw it, I'm thinking of 5 times 2 2/3. I'm thinking of that 2 2/3 as 2 holes put together with 2 1/3 pieces. And once I do that, do you see the distributive property starting to come into view? What do I have? I have 5 2s, 5 of those 2 whole pieces, put together with 5 sets of the 2 1/3 pieces. Now, do you notice I haven't put parentheses around these? It's not required. Order of operations has these. On their own, I can put parentheses for clarity. Not required, could be helpful. But do you see the 2 pieces? And do you see the distributive property? So what is 5 put together, or 5 groups of 2 2/3? Well, I've got the 10 there. Okay, so I've got 10 holes, and then I have to combine to figure out the 2/3. Now, for some of your children, they may know what 5 sets of 2/3 is. They know how to do that multiplication. But if we're still trying to get that worked out, notice what the picture lets me do. I can see that piece going in there and that hole and that piece going in there. That gives me 2 more holes, and this piece can go in there. I've got 3 more holes and 1/3 left over because I moved that one. I moved these 2 up into here. Okay, so my 5 groups of 2 put together with 5 groups of 2/3 gives me 10. And those 5 groups of 2/3 are going to give me 1, 2, 3 more holes and a 1/3 piece left over. So I end up with 13 and 1/3. Now think about, how do I read that for conceptual? 3 groups of 1 5/8. I can draw the 3 groups, and if you'd like, pause the video and give it a go. I want 1 5/8. Now, drawing pictures is challenging for children, especially trying to get the holes all the same. So it's important just to have them practice drawing holes underneath, one underneath the other, trying to get them about the same length. That will help with the comparisons and what we're doing. Now, what we're going to do is to do 5/8, right? So I can kind of divide this into 8s, and I'm going to use 5 of them in each one. Do you notice also how I'm cutting this to do the drawing? I know I cut in half. I cut each half in half. And then I cut those in half to get my 8s. And that's what we try to help your children do when they're first working with fractions. Now, as I do this, how did I think of that 1 5/8? I thought of it as a whole put together with 5 1/8 pieces. As I'm drawing it, I know I have a whole and 5 1/8, a whole and 5 1/8. So when I look at this, how did I make that up? What's the rest of that distributive property? I've got 3 holes put together with 3 sets of 5/8. Right? 3 holes is 3. If I'm not sure, see, I can take these 3 pieces and put it right in there. I can take these two pieces and combine it. I can either draw and show how I'm taking these two and putting it up in there, or I could write it out. Because what do I have? When I have those three sets of 5/8, I can think of it as a whole. There's one. And I have the 7 1/8 pieces left. Or I was about to write 2 1/8 put together with 5 1/8. I add it all together, I get 4 and 7 1/8 pieces. Now, if you go back to the addition video, here's what we just did. To add 1 and 5/8 put together with 5/8, what did I do? I thought of that 5/8 as 3/8 put together with 2/8. Instead of associating it here, what did I do? I moved it up and associated it with the 1 and 5/8. That's how I got 2 and 2/8. So we're using the associative property. We're using the ideas we learned when we were adding and subtracting fractions with the multiplication, but we're adding and linking it into distributive property. Okay, now we'll do one more. And I'm going to stick with the 3 times 5/8. Give it one more go. Make sure we're clear on how this works. The idea, we have 3 groups of 5/8. So I still have the 3 groups of 5/8. Okay. And remember I said when I'm going to draw pictures of fractions less than 1, I'm going to use a dotted line to draw those pictures. I use the long rectangle just because it connects to the fraction kit. I think of things as a measurement model, so it reminds me of a ruler. Nothing says that I couldn't have drawn bigger, thicker rectangles, oblongs. I could have used circles, but for some, using this model helps because it matches their kit. They're drawing what they see there. Now remember, I take the whole, cut it in half, cut each half in half, and then really each fourth in half. And then I can outline 5 of these. So there's 5/8 in relation to the whole. Do the same thing every time. Have you beat me at your drawing? Do you pause it and see what you did? So essentially, I've got 3 groups of 5/8. I'm going to need to combine them. I've got the 5/8. One way to think about it, right? 3 groups of 5/8. How many 5/8 pieces do I have? Well, I have 15 of those 8 pieces, right? 1/8 pieces. Then I can think about that mixed number equivalent. I could, like I did before, take these 3 and fill in that hole. Because when I add 5/8 with 5/8, I can think of this one as 3/8 put together, oh goodness, thinking ahead, with 2/8. Instead of associating the 3/8 here, I'm actually showing the associative property. So this imagery isn't to use when you can't do the algorithm that we learned. It's to build the looks for algebraic approaches. That's what we're trying to do. Use associative property, use distributive property, use an equal grouping model that's familiar from when they did place value approaches and whole number approaches. So I end up, just by putting this here, I'm left with a whole and these 2 1/8 pieces down there. and I mix those in. So in the end, I still end up with 1 7/8. And by mixing them in, that was a very math term, I put those up there. So I have the 7/8 pieces. So I start to combine. I'm drawing the pictures. I'm drawing efficient pictures. I'm drawing pictures that let me see the fraction in relation to the whole when needed, and that's with fractions less than 1. Here, I don't have to do that because I see the fraction in relation to the whole by how I use the mixed number approach. Okay? Arithmetic approach, I'm trying to remember the rule, and I'm not focused on the imagery or the distributive property at all in this one. But if I get my pictures right and use what we've done with whole numbers, I can extend it to mixed numbers, and again, use an algebraic approach. If you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up. Please share it with others. Hopefully fractions are making sense a little bit about the way your child is seeing it. Again, check out the multiplication playlist for other videos on multiplication, both with area model, equal grouping model, multiplication facts, whole numbers, and fractions. Thanks so much for watching.